Today I'm talking about one of my favorite weekend getaways from Seattle.
Welcome to Vacation Mavens, the podcast that brings you travel inspiration and practical tips from two moms who know how to plan the perfect trip.
I'm Tamara from Your Time to Fly.
And I'm Kim from Stuffed Suitcase. With over 40 years of travel experience between us, we're here to share our favorite destinations from road trips to cruising, theme parks, and European adventures.
Whether you're planning a family vacation or a mom getaway, we have the tips and tricks to make memories that will last a lifetime. So, Kim, before we get into your whole Sherlock Holmes adventure, I wanted to just give a shout out to a couple of our listeners that have written into us recently. First, I really want to thank Nicole, who is someone who gave me some great advice. She heard me talking about going to Peru with Hannah in March, and she actually did a mother-daughter trip last March, and she sent me some really good advice about altitude sickness and other things. And I just saw her pictures. It looked amazing. So thank you so much, Nicole, for that information. I always love when we can connect with our listeners, especially hear about your trips as well, since we're always talking about ours.
Yeah, it's nice to have them help us.
Yeah.
Hopefully we help them and they help us. Well, I'm going to give a shout out to a new review that we have because we love when you guys review us on the podcast apps. And we have, it sounds like maybe a new listener, Lindsay, who has just recently found us when she was looking for some travel advice for traveling with toddlers and kids. But she's also, it seems like, a new fan and fallen in love with us. So we're happy to hear that you're hooked, Lindsay. Thanks for leaving a review.
Yeah, and also thanks to Amy and Clarabelle because they wrote in with some feedback and suggestions on how we were asking you guys, like, do you prefer the longer format, shorter format, interviews, non-interviews, and all that. So it was really great to get some feedback, and we keep sending it. It's good. And if I missed anybody that sent us a message on Instagram or something, I'm not always good about filing these in a place where I can remember to give you guys a shout out, but we appreciate all the messages.
Yeah, we've talked like a couple of recordings. We've mentioned things that come up, but then we keep forgetting to give you guys shout outs. So we do appreciate it. Sorry if we forgot anyone.
Yeah. So, Kim, I know you just recently had a little staycation, sort of a staycation, but you still went away, a little weekend getaway from Seattle. And it was a place you've been to before, but tell us a little bit about Whidbey Island, why you like it.
Yeah. Whidbey Island, I love it. It's one of the kind of northern islands. I actually feel like it's more of a peninsula, but it must be an island. I don't know. It'd be interesting. It is technically connected by a bridge at the very top northern section. So it kind of connects for a bridge and then drops down into the Sound. And Whidbey Island is just one of those small town islands with a few different little towns dotted around. And my first real weekend getaway experience was a couple of years ago. I went in February with a girlfriend for their mystery weekend that takes place in Langley. And I think Langley is one of the best little towns on Whidbey Island. There's a few. There's like Greenbank and Coopville, which is another ferry terminal. And then, of course, there's a Clinton terminal stop as well for ferries. So you can reach the island. Like if you're coming from Seattle, you can drive north a little ways on I-5 and then take a ferry across for the Whidbey-Clinton ferry route and then drive around. Whidbey Island, I will say, is definitely one of those islands that you want to have a car on. It'd be a little hard to get around without one. So definitely a car getaway.
Are these car ferries ones that you need to reserve in advance? Because I know like there's some places around here in New England where you have to really reserve it in advance.
You don't have to reserve it in advance, but if you don't, especially in the summer or on weekends, especially with rush hour, because there are commuters that use that route as well. So you'd want to make sure you're taking care of making reservations. I'm trying to remember on that route, if the Mukilteo-Clinton one, if that even has reservations, because a couple of the short routes, because it's a really quick, it's like a 20-25 minute route, as opposed to like the San Juan Island routes. Those are a little longer. And I can't even remember if reservations are allowed on that one, but you do have to expect that there's going to be a little bit of a wait. That's why, since I'm already based on the north side of the city, sometimes it's just a beautiful drive. And so you go through Deception Pass State Park on the far north. So it is a ways up there, but it can be a pretty drive if you want to just take a little road trip. And you save a little bit by not having to pay for the car on the ferry. But
then you just take that bridge that you mentioned in the northern part of the island?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I did on this past one, just because I wanted to have the pretty drive.
Well, I know you've been there in the wintertime, and I think we're definitely going to talk about this mystery weekend because I think that's a really cool idea from a tourism perspective to bring people in. to a town and maybe a time that's not as busy, but what is kind of their prime time? Is it a year-round destination? Is it really a tourist destination, or is it kind of a mix of residential and
I think it's
tourist?
a mix. There's definitely people that live on the island, and that's part of just life there. But I definitely think during the winter, things slow down, and you might find you have to check hours. There was an art studio I was going to visit, and they took off for January because it's one of the least busy seasons. So being a local, I think the winter is a really nice time to go because it's less crowds, just kind of a more laid back getaway. Prices are great. Like the inn where I stayed at during the summer, you'd probably pay triple what the price was this past weekend. So there's some real benefits to going in the going in the winter season. I think that just is a pro thing. And then the mystery weekend that takes place in Langley is at the end of February every year. And I think that is a real draw, and there's no reason not to go then and kind of experience that cute small town charm. I love Langley. It's a great little town.
It makes me think of my trip that we just talked about to Nova Scotia and some of the small towns that I was visiting there because, that is a very popular destination in the summer, but you can still experience that kind of small town charm in the winter.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like it would be a place where, you stay at an inn or a bed and breakfast versus a hotel. Can you tell us a little bit about like some of the places to stay or where you stayed?
Yeah, so I've stayed at a couple different places now. One of the places that I stayed on my previous trip when I was there for the mystery weekend was slightly outside of downtown Langley, so we did need to have the car to go there, but it was called Comforts of Whidbey, and it was a winery B&B. And so it's actually a wine tasting room, and they built some kind of like little studio bedrooms above the winery, and so when the winery closes, then you can stay in one of those apartments, and it almost feels like it's not an Airbnb, like it's a B&B, but you have, a code that you get to let yourself in and out to go to the upstairs. So you don't have to, even if you're coming and going when the winery's not open, you still can access your room. And it was just really cute. It was modern and new when I stayed there 2 years ago. So cute little place, and has a slight view of the water. And of course, it's a winery, and they've got some great wines. The other thing about Whidbey Island and a lot of the islands in Washington is there are some unique varietals that you won't see at, like if you're drinking wine in Washington State, especially in the East, you'll get a few different varietals here on the islands that you don't get at some of those Eastern Washington wineries. So that's kind of fun.
When Hannah was home, we were watching a lot of sports. And at one point, she was like, Walla Walla University. Like, are they making that up? And I'm like, Walla Walla, Washington. It's a real place.
Yeah.
And when I think of wine tasting in Washington, that's definitely one of the places I think of.
Absolutely. Walla Walla is huge for wine tasting and for sweet onions. Some people know a Vidalia sweet onion, but Walla Walla sweet onions is what we have out here. So they're a big sweet onion maker, that sound. But Whidbey Island, I would say that little Comforts of Whidbey was such a cute little B&B. But most recently on this trip that I just had, this little winter weekend getaway solo staycation, and I stayed at the Saratoga Inn, which is in Langley, like downtown, and I fell in love. It is so cute, like a historic, cute house that's been turned into, a hotel. And I was greeted, and they check you in. they still have the old-fashioned keys and stuff, so it was just so cute. My room, it sits right, so you have a slight view of, I'm trying to think of what even body of water that is. I should know. Maybe it's Salish, Samish, maybe Samish Bay. Yeah, water view. There is a road, so there's a couple power lines, but it is a water view, and a fireplace in the room.
Oh, nice.
Beautiful stand-up shower and everything. It was just amazing. And then they have wine and snacks, like kind of a little happy hour from 4 to 6, I think. And then a breakfast that's served. It's like not even a buffet. It's you sit down at the table and they kind of tell you, here's what's on the menu. So it was like fruit and a quiche and some coffee cake. And so it was just charming. Absolutely loved that. So highly recommend that place. I could see in the winter the fireplace and just having that view and waking up in the morning. It was just awesome. So
do you think it's really good for couples or friends then?
100%. Yeah. And I did notice something else about Whidbey Island that stood out to me on this trip. And I think it's because there's so many locals visiting during the winter. Very dog friendly. So it was a dog-friendly hotel, and I just saw so many restaurants that are dog-friendly places. There's dog shops. One of the places I stopped to get a hot chocolate and check out that was like called Green Bank Farm. They have a whole dog park there. There was 2 dog parks that I noticed on my trip, and so it's a very dog-friendly location as well. So I think couples, or if you want to have a getaway with your dog, it's a really good destination for that.
You and your dog Valentine's Day getaway.
Yeah. I do think it would be an amazing Valentine's Day getaway destination for locals, especially even if you can just get to Seattle easily. It's really fun and easy to add on if you're going to go into the city for a day or two, and then you want to kind of have laid back, small
Pacific
town.
Northwest, like get the feel of that.
Gorgeous. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've got the trees, and yeah, it's beautiful.
That's good. Well, tell us about this mystery weekend, because when you and I were talking about this actually a couple weeks ago when you were making the plan, and I was a little confused at first, but I really love the idea the more that you explained it, and I think it's like super smart from a tourism perspective too, in terms of getting people in and experiencing different parts of the town. So explain how it all works.
Yeah, so the Langley Mystery Weekend, and it happens at the end of February. I think it's the last weekend of February every year. But the cool thing about it is that you show up, you go to the Tourism Chamber of Commerce, and I believe you buy the booklet, and it gives you an entry form to be able to guess who you think did it. So it's very affordable. But inside it tells you where you'll find clues around town. And so you can kind of walk around, and you have to go follow the map and go to all the different businesses. And sometimes there's coupons as well. So if you're going to it's just a really smart, like you said, from a tourism way. And it's a really, I think, fun way to discover the small town charm of Langley and just kind of wander on streets and shops. And the fun thing that they have is, so you're going around, and when we did it, and I haven't checked what this year is, but at the stores, they have the little tear off clue. And so it's all these characters, and it's like, oh, this character was talking to Mary Lou at the post office. And so you kind of have to put all the clues together. And I think I definitely over Sherlock Holmes it. I think it was a little more so if you do decide to go, just don't make it too difficult. Have fun with it. But the fun thing is they get volunteers around town to be these characters. Oh, okay. And so you actually can go to the city park, and there was some high schoolers there, and they were talking about how they were at the science fair, and they're totally in character and acting, and it was just fun. It's kind of cute. So
when you get that booklet, does it give you the premise, like the beginning of the story? So
yes.
You start to figure out.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's a little bit like playing Clue.
Yes. Yeah, I guess a little bit. It's kind of it's just, you get the premise of the story, and you're wanting to figure out who's guilty. And so you want to go around and try and get these clues and make some deductive reasoning based on what you're reading. There was a chocolate chip wrapper found at the back of this store, and
this person was spied eating chocolate chip cookies. Or
exactly.
Like okay.
But a lot of them just have nothing to do with the storyline at all. They're just kind of fun things.
Yeah,
the cool thing about it is that getting around Whidbey Island, it's a very skinny island. So like I kind of said, it almost feels like a peninsula. People that are not watching online can't see this, but it basically is a straight highway, pretty much straight down the middle. It curves a little bit, of course, because it's an island, and it's not flat. There's mountains, hills and stuff. So not mountains, but
hills.
Yeah, hills. And so you can navigate it really easily. So you're not, trying to get from little towns. So that's what's fun about the Langley Mystery Weekend, is that you can go in, base yourself in Langley, like at the Saratoga Inn or wherever you might want to stay. There's tons of other cute little hotels, and then be able to, if you have your car, be able to drive to some of these other towns. And I will say I've been super impressed with the food. So for you, I think you would like it as well. It's just kind of I'm sure it's a Seattle chef, and they open this restaurant here as well, with the idea of the tourist thing that you see happening in a lot of, I don't know, suburban small towns of major cities, right?
Yeah.
So the food scene's really great.
Good. So with the Mystery Weekend, I think you said that they change up the story and thing every year?
Every year it's a new story. So they have a local resident. Her name's Loretta, and she writes the mystery every year. So she's been doing it for, I guess, 20 years now or something. So but it does change every year and the characters change and it's a different plot. And
That's good. So you can go back if you enjoy it.
And then on Sunday, you can go every year and there's people who come. It's like their dedicated thing that they do. And it just happens over the one weekend. And you have a certain deadline. You have to put in your guess with the little piece of paper. And then they do a big unveiling of the guilty party. And so all the characters meet and they do it like at the community fair. Yeah, on that weekend, on that Sunday. So it's a real, like, it's all wrapped up. It's just a great weekend. And you show up to the community theater. The one year we were there, they were still doing stuff outside. But you show up to the community theater and they come and they talk through every, the case. And, normally there's a sheriff who's there to kind of talk about it, and they've deducted, and this is who the guilty party is.
Yeah.
And whoever got it right, they pull a name out and there's prizes. Local businesses donate prizes.
Oh, nice.
So if your name gets pulled out, you can.
So you kind of need to be there to see.
Yeah, I think you have to be present to be able to win the prizes and to get the answer. I mean, you can look up, I think they broadcast it on like their Facebook channel. So if you don't stay until Sunday, you can still find out who did it. But I'm not sure on the prizes if you have to be present to win or not.
It sounds like perfect for anybody that loves like escape rooms and puzzles and games and, just like enjoys also just having a more directed activity for your weekend. Sometimes
I think
there's so many cute places that are, that are great to go to for a weekend. And people are like, what do I do when I'm there? And I'm like, there's great food. You wander around, but just sometimes for these cute towns to kind of have a purpose, have something that, you're going to do.
That's what I think that's what makes it so good, is that you can have directed, like, oh, we're going to go to this, like, hit this road and then let's go get lunch, or we're going to do this and then we'll go take a hike. And so there's all those little things. And I think that's what it helps with, is just kind of, and mostly for Langley, granted, there are the other little towns, which are really nice. So, but yeah.
So you mentioned that you liked the food. Were there any particular restaurants or places that you wanted to mention?
Yeah. So last time I remember really stood out to me is a place called Saltwater, which is like a kind of pubby seafood style restaurant. It kind of has a pubby feel, but a little more upscale. And it's right on First Street in Langley. So got a great view and all of that. And then this time I got the chance, because I was only there for one night, I had dinner at a place called Savory, which was just unbelievable. And I think you would like it because it's more of a, I guess, tapas type, restaurant where you want to really share with people. And so for me, it was like, well, I'm just going to get this and this. But the idea is that a few people order and you kind of share, and it's like breads with dips, and then there's like mushrooms, or so it's very appetizer-ish stuff, like shareables, but it's really cute and was a great little thing. And then they have a great called Langley Kitchen, where I had breakfast the next morning. Well, I had breakfast at my hotel, but then I got a little afternoon, I guess, breakfast. 2 breakfasts. Yeah. A brunchy thing. And that's really cute as well. And then there's another place called the Brayburn, which is I ate at last time. That was another cute little like local, just kind of, I would say that's really good for like lunch, breakfast type places, but I think they had dinner as well. So just, there's so many little places around there. There's another place I ate at in Greenbank that they changed their name, so I have to look that up. But if anybody wants to know the name of that place, we can put it in the show notes or something, and I'll look it up, because I know when I ate there was a different name, then they just changed the name. But it was a great little chef inspired with wine, good wine pairings restaurant. So,
nice. So you mentioned wine tasting, possible hiking, shopping, looking around town. Any other kind of must-dos when you're in Whidbey Island?
Well, I do know that for the winter, I think a lot of it is you want to kind of do as much indoor, but there is something about the islands that I think they're in like a sun shadow or something. So while it's in the winter, you can get fog. It was sunny and gorgeous both days I was there, even if it was raining where I'm at in the Seattle area. So there's a little bit, you can't be assured that it's going to be gross weather. So definitely getting outdoors, doing some stuff, bundling up. I mean, most of us in the Pacific Northwest have learned that you just put on some layers and a good raincoat and some good shoes and boots and you're good to go. So I got this chance to check out this one place on this trip called Earth Sanctuary, which is really interesting to me. It's like a privately owned, I'm guessing it's like a privately owned park. And so you show up and I'm assuming the people who own it, it's their house. And you pull in and there's 2 different parking lots you can access it from. And then you pay $7. You can either leave $7 like in a envelope, or you can Venmo or PayPal it to them. And it is a space that's been designed. It's definitely got a lot of Tibetan Buddhism, like the Tibetan bells and all that, and the flags. It's got a lot of that symbolism and kind of features around there. Like there's a wheel thing, but it's really been designed for any faith, religion, non-faith, non-religion, like just time to be in nature and kind of be at one with yourself. And so there's purposefully set up little spots like a circle, and they call it a labyrinth. They took out the bushes, so it's just a stone labyrinth. And it's like, oh, when you think of what your intention is, and then just ponder that intention as you make your way through this little stone labyrinth, which is, I mean, it's very circular and doable. And yeah, so it was just, I thought it was a really interesting space because it's just a nice place to, if you like nature, it's kind of, again, it's almost like a directed hike where you have something to be looking forward to or moving on. And I was definitely glad that I had some boots because since it was winter, there was some muddy sections, but otherwise it was just so nice to be in nature. I took some videos and, there was like birds and just the trees and the greenery. There was a big glacial erratic and it was gorgeous. So
yeah,
I was happy I had that experience.
Little zen kind of. So that sounds lovely.
Yeah. And then there's another place called Hammond's Preserve that I drove to the morning just to kind of do it. And it was very small, but had a really pretty view of the water. And it was definitely seemed like one of those it was under a half a mile little circle hike, but really tailored for dogs. So again, that would be a place to go to if you're wanting, because they had like a dog waste, the bags and the garbage bin. And so that was another little spot. And I do know there's a state park beach that I visited 2 years ago, but I'm blanking on what the name of that is. And there's a lot of, like wakeboarding, not kiteboarding and stuff. I think that happens there. But, with the weather being the winter season, maybe, people aren't really interested in the beach quite as much.
Yeah. Need a really good wetsuit.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that stands out to me there that was a new experience was just all the tasting rooms. And I think for winter season, that's a really good thing, as we talked about, like it being a couple's getaway or weekend girlfriend getaway. And like in Langley itself, there's this Ottenhunter tasting room. There's a Misfit Cider Company. And then, of course, there's great wines at all the restaurants. And like even Langley Kitchen, if it is a sunny, nice weekend in the winter and you don't mind a little cold, they have like picnic baskets and food that you can grab and go. And they've got a few wine options as well. So you could pack your own picnic, or even if you wanted to stock up on that and take it back to your room or have a little picnic indoors. But I think the tasting rooms are really cool. And I had my very first experience this trip that was just amazing that I've never done before. But have you ever had mead?
I don't know. I feel like maybe, but I can't really remember.
Yeah, I didn't even know. So I went in there, and so on Whidbey Island, there's this meadery called Hierophant. I can't say it, but it's Hierophant. You can get the show notes if you need it. It's the only meadery on Whidbey Island. So if you do a search for it, but I didn't even know what mead was. All I'm thinking is like Renaissance fair, like mead. I don't know. So I was a little unsure, and I went in there, and they were so nice and helpful. I went in, and he's like, well, yeah, what can I get you? And I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And I'm going to be driving. So I was like, I just wanted to try a sample of something to even figure out what mead was. Yeah. And then I was going to like maybe buy a couple so I could bring it home and have more. And I was so impressed. So it is basically wine made with honey.
Okay. I was going to say, I thought it was honey.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a bee. The symbol is like a bee. And so they use a massive amount of honey to make basically fermented wine. And they put a lot of different flavors with it. And so I got a base bottle, what they consider like the base for most of their flavors. And so that's the one I brought home to try. And that's what I had a sip of. And then they also had an apple spice one, but it gives me cider vibes. So there is a little bit of a cider tasting vibe thing going on. But I was just really impressed. But they had some crazy ones too. They had like one that sort of had absinthe flavors or something with it. And I didn't try it, but they had a mojito one. So I got a can of that one as well. And there's some that are sparkling. So they're a little effervescent as well. But I thought that was just really clever and cool. So again, it's something that you don't see everywhere. So that's a really cool draw for if you take a little trip to Whidbey, is checking that out. And it looked like when I was pulling in, it looked like it was some dude's like garage. But it's actually, like the property, but the outbuilding is massive, and they've had to build a huge outdoor space because I guess it's really popular in the summer. with people hanging out there. And you can do a tasting for $10, a tasting of 8 different ones.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to give it a shot and figure out what you like, it's a great way to do it. So,
well, I think this is going to come out like right at the end of January. And so I think it's a great idea for anybody that wants a last minute, either Valentine's Day weekend getaway or definitely go for the mystery weekend.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a great spot with lots to offer. Do you have any final tips that you want to share?
So I think definitely like the Whidbey Island tourism has a really good website with all of, some ideas and stuff. So it's always a great reference point if you want to look at some stuff. And I think just make sure you know how you're going to get there. Slow traffic, because it is an island community. Plan for, possible waits for ferries if you're going on a weekend. Little things like that. Just pack your island life, laid back attitude and expect to have fun and just relax. I think it's really great. So,
yeah. Cool. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot and do a throwback for our listeners that have been around a long time. There were a couple of questions we always used to ask our guests. And so I'm going to put Kim on the spot and ask if there's any place that you would recommend to take a photo to remember the trip.
Ooh. Yeah, a couple of places. I think I'm going to go with number one would maybe be that Hammond's Preserve that I mentioned, just because it does have that beautiful backdrop. And so I could see that if you had a tripod or trying to figure, it's kind of open. So if you don't have someone taking the photo for you or a tripod, you might have a little bit more trouble. I think that would be really beautiful. And then I think in the Earth sanctuary space that I was talking about, if you want that Pacific Northwest rainforesty, there's so many paths with these amazing old cedar trees and evergreen trees. And I think that's really a beautiful space to kind of get a photo of that Pacific Northwest. But all around the whole island, you can probably find some pretty amazing spots.
Good. And anything that you must pack, especially if you're going in February?
Yeah, I would say layers, a good rain jacket, but good base layers, because when I was on that hike, I was like wanting to unzip. And so being able to have layers are huge. And then a good pair of waterproof shoes or boots that can be washed or cleaned. You do want to enjoy nature when you're out there. Whidbey Island's gorgeous. You've got at the top of the island, you've got Deception Pass State Park, which is one of the most beautiful state parks, I think, in Western Washington. So definitely get out and enjoy nature, even in the winter.
Do you still use your Forsake boots?
I do.
Okay.
I still have my Forsake ones. Yeah. And on this one, because I knew it was going to be really muddy, I took my pair that I totally ruined in Kauai with red mud when I was there in April. So I took that pair instead of my new ones that I recently bought that I took to. I think I took those to Turkey, actually.
Oh, cool. So,
yeah.
Got a good brand recommendation if you had 2 pairs then.
Yeah, I love my Forsake patch because they're thin, so they're easy to pack and they're always waterproof. They keep my feet warm. They fit my foot well. So I still just buy them.
Nice.
Yep.
Good. Well, it sounds fun. And let's see, what are we going to talk to our listeners next time?
I think that we are going to give some of our favorite tips for picking where to sit on an airplane.
Important one.
It's a good one.
Talk to you next time.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and rate and review on your favorite podcast app, as that helps other people discover us. And if you want to see more, follow me, Tamara, at Your Time to Fly on Instagram and Facebook and all the others.
And you can follow me, Kim, at Stuffed Suitcase on Instagram, Facebook, and of course my blog.